the next section of the discussion. We've got a whole bunch of stuff. About halfway through here. Let's talk about Pittsboro zoning maps and stakeholder meetings. What's the latest on that?
So I think a lot of people have been working on a great plan. We want to preserve what is downtown and keep it looking like downtown. I think the two offshoots from that, the 64 business going both east and west, will be, more of a mixed use commercial type setting. We have the whole issue of figuring out what we're going to do when the county leaves Pittsboro.
They're moving down that way. Now, when you say 64 east-west, how far east are you talking and how far west are you talking about that going?
We got Reeves Farm.
Right across from the Ag Center. Right.
So probably that far, that
Okay.
way from the center of town. And then you have Chatham Park and the bypass going the other way. So probably that, and that side is already more developed. Between Pittsboro and the 64 bypass going east is much more developed than going west.
Well, let me ask you this. You got Reeves Farm over there, you got the county moving out of downtown, and you've got it down to Chatham Park, and you see all the activity up in Chatham Park. You see their mosaic area, and if you look at the drawings there, I mean, they're nowhere close to being.
Have you seen the sidewalk south of Pittsboro?
No, I hadn't.
Oh my gosh, I can't. It looks like an airplane could fly. I mean, it's huge. It's giant. It's the biggest sidewalk I've ever seen.
Yeah, but are people still running across the street where they're not supposed to run across the street?
No, this one, I'm talking about south of Pittsboro Moncure Road.
Okay, I'll need to check that out.
You need to check it out.
All right. Well, here's the concern some people have. If you got stuff building that way and you got stuff building that way, what happens to the businesses and stuff
Right.
going in here? And I mean, sometimes you got a bunch of traffic. You don't have enough parking spaces. I mean, I hear people complain.
We
about
do
that.
have enough parking space.
We do.
We really do. I mean,
Then why are people complaining about no parking spaces?
Well, I think for those of us that have been here since the 90s, it's not just pull up to the front of a store like it used to be or whatever.
Right.
But compared to Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Hillsborough, and Apex, and Hillsborough and Apex I think are two great. I think Hillsborough is an excellent model for us because that's actually a county seat with a courthouse in the middle and blah,
Yep.
blah, blah. I think Apex was a lot like Pittsboro 20, 30 years ago, and it had to, it experienced rapid growth. I mean, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S., and they had a really good comprehensive zoning plan, like a future use map, which I think was really, really good.
But a lot of people in Pittsburgh don't want to be like Apex.
What people in Pittsboro have to understand right now, I don't want to get in trouble for this, but it is not, the growth is, not only is the growth coming, but it's here. I mean, it's, now you have to be you want to be a decision maker in how the growth is happening. And of course we want, smart growth. But I think if we can preserve, we don't want to call it an historic district because we're not going to have like historic limitations, whatever, but you can't replicate what is downtown Pittsboro. I mean, it has a uniqueness, the building designs, the charm, the different kinds of businesses that we have here. We want to preserve that. And then, extend it out from there on both sides. And I think, we've talked about how Chatham Park is a different animal. Maybe the Pittsboro downtown area is more mom and pop or more second, third, and fourth businesses from our surrounding cities. Like if somebody Doherty's, what a great example.
I mean,
Doherty's is a great example.
Yeah.
So, like being a second, third, or fourth. And I think Chatham Park, not always, I mean, there's some good local businesses, but that tends to gravitate more to the national franchises. And I think downtown needs that Chatham Park as it's the rooftops, and we certainly want those customers and visitors to come here. And but I think we're a nice amenity for Chatham Park too. I don't think you can fake this. You can't.
Well, I
build this.
think the county, and I know Teresa, I run into her at a lot of these events, and I talk to her quite a bit. They do a nice job with the first Sundays. I mean,
She is like the Energizer Bunny. I cannot believe how hard she works. I feel as though I'm in a bunch of meetings with her, and she talks about, you know, the 3 or 4 other meetings that she's already had that day or going to that night or whatever. The town is so lucky to have
look,
her.
you know
She's
what?
phenomenal.
I've been trying to work on it, and people here can help me out. I'm trying to convince her that when they have another street event here sometime, and they only have to do it one time, is to get a Ferris wheel out there. You're laughing. You get a Ferris wheel out there, and you have a contest for the best picture of the town that you can get from that Ferris wheel.
Oh, yeah.
You don't think we'd have a bunch of great pictures of the courthouse?
You don't think you'd have people leaning out and falling out?
No, they're standing there. And you know what? If they fall out, and I know people are going to hate me for saying this, survival of the fittest.
That was on NPR this morning. They were talking about how the U.S. on all their national parks and everything has all these fences and everything. And you go to Iceland and they don't have anything. And Americans are shocked how there's nothing in Iceland, and their attitude is like, eh.
I believe that. If you go, if you go to
the
the Grand Canyon, if you go to the Indian Reservation portion of it, there's nothing there. I mean, you can walk to the edge and walk off of it. Where you go to the U.S. Forest Department section, it's everything is fenced in. Yeah, and then there are the silly people, and I saw this at the Indian Reservation where it says a sign, "Do not lean over it," and you got a influencer hanging off of the sign taking a picture. I'm like, yeah, if you slip, you're gone.
I'm trying to find out. I don't want to say it wrong because Teresa will kill me. There's a stakeholders meeting.
Who exactly are these stakeholders?
June 23rd, 9 o'clock. It's at the Ag Center. Stakeholders are people that actually own a business in downtown or own real estate in downtown.
Okay.
So those are the stakeholders. And so she's going to be talking about the zoning maps and what the plans are.
I know we talked about this the last time. With the county moving out, I think the town is looking at what to do with that space and those facilities. So what's the latest, or have there been any updates?
No updates on that, but they've hired a consulting group and they're looking at what would be best. And we all have different opinions. I think a civic center would be great. I know that seems very futuristic, and we're like, gosh, Pittsburgh's too small for that. But I don't think Pittsburgh's going to be too small for that. What an amazing opportunity Pittsburgh has right now. Like, people are devastated that, the county workers are going to leave here and we're going to lose business and everything. This is an incredible opportunity to have all this real estate and, usually when towns change and grow, it's little pieces here and there and everything. You really can't control it. The county leaving those sites and having all that potential property and buildings available at once, we really have an opportunity to do some great things here.
Wasn't there discussion also about possibly looking at housing,
Absolutely,
workforce housing, whether it was apartment or townhomes?
Yeah, John Foley brought in a plan, just a consideration rendering of where, we'd have a mixed use retail on the bottom and then actual ownership of condos above, which I think would be fantastic.
Yeah, so your workers that may be going down the road are replaced by folks that live in
workforce
housing. That when they're living here, they're shopping here and everything else. So you got Chatham Park there, but here in the middle of Pittsburgh, you got a whole bunch of stuff going on. Anything else right now? Again, you got your stakeholder meeting June 23rd at the Ag Center.
Mm-hmm.
And anything else before we get into other smart topics?
It's not going to be smart topics.
No, it is going to be smart topics because I'm not taking credit for this, but Eric has come up, and I think it's actually probably a good term that Chatham County is experiencing a identity tension. Because it's interesting because if you go through the stories that are out there, it's kind of like, okay, what's going on? I think what some of the people are worried about is, oh gosh, I forget what the term is, where folks move in and
NIMBY?
Not NIMBY, but they move in from somewhere else. They move into here because it's unique and it's something new, and then they try turning it into where they move from. And I think that worries a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, hey, one of the reasons you moved here is because of the way things are here.
Right. Right.
Don't
Yeah.
Don't New Jersey, don't California,
Oh, yeah.
my Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, I've heard complaints. Oh, you don't have any restaurants open on Monday, or there's nothing open on Sunday, or whatever. And we're like, yeah, it's kind of like what we're used to.
Yeah, it's like really, you can't get your hair cut at Cato's on Wednesday afternoon.
Right. Yeah, I mean, some residents want this area to remain rural forever, and you know, I mean, the economic growth and like we're in the way of a lot of things. It's almost, I mean, it's a white canvas, isn't it? There's so much that we could do.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, I was talking to Dimitri about this. You look at Northwood. At one time, they had 1,400 kids. It's now the third largest school. It's behind JM. They're down to 700. But in
Right.
5 to 10 years, those numbers are going to be going back up.
Yeah.
And Seafort's, if you drive up to Seafort, you look at it on the left-hand side. There's a piece. There's land right there.
Mm-hmm.
So if they need to, they can expand.
Right.
You've got that quote-unquote problem, but if you go to Orange County, they're closing down a school.
Yeah, Chapel Hill Carver is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's because of the people living there not having kids and the affordability.
Right.
So they're being driven outside of the market. Young people who can or want to have kids aren't living in that area. That's sad. We don't want that happening here.
Yeah, and that's what you and I harp on is the
right.
workforce affordability, because we want the folks that work here, law enforcement, nursing, and again, I think at one time when I was on the planning board, they were referencing making this the medical sciences
Yeah.
between here and Chapel Hill, the
Right.
medical sciences corridor,
Right.
where you'd have your hospital and all sorts of health facilities, and you
Yeah.
see a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they've done a good job.
all right. I know you've tackled some of this stuff, and there's like, on the planning board, rural character, open space, agriculture, small town identity, housing, jobs, tax growth rate, and infrastructure investment. And I know when you talk about infrastructure, you always like to have that lane that the buses can go off of and not block traffic.
We just got to figure out what kind of growth we want. I mean, growth is going to happen.
Right.
Like, you know, it's just, I don't want to get people mad, but it's an unrealistic expectation to think that I discovered this place and no one else is going to discover it, or that we're not. I mean, it's just phenomenal amount of investments being made into Chatham Park and Disney and UNC, and you know, we have this educated workforce. The triangle is what a lot of different states
Wish they had.
And you know, when you say I have like the most educated advanced degree workforce in the entire country in like this 60-mile swath or whatever, and Chatham County is really sticking its nose in the middle of it. You know, I mean, this lake is a great geographic barrier, but it's also, you know, it's not one side of the lake or the other anymore. I mean, like, this side of the lake is finally available to people. And so I know it's really disappointing for me to say it's not about no growth, but it's about how we direct the growth.
Well, I think Michael Smith, whenever he makes a presentation, whether it's in front of the chamber or somebody else, is pointing out the fact, as you said, with the educational institutions around the area. It's like, hey, you got a ready workforce coming out of 3 or 4 universities around here, and and a lot of those people come here. Your daughter, she's sticking around here, isn't she?
Yeah. She liked moving to Raleigh or whatever, but she didn't like the work environment there, and so I'm glad that she's working with us. And it just didn't make sense for her to drive 45 minutes every day.
Well, I also think the rural character, that's still, considering what Chatham County is the 10th largest landmass county in the state, that there will still be rural spots, because you're not going to get county sewer and water to some of those places.
No. And as a property rights guy, okay, when we look at that area that is between Pittsburgh and Chapel Hill, and we look at the area that's between Pittsburgh and Cary, You know, that area has hyper developed, and there are people that did very well for themselves when they sold a piece of land and made it into a subdivision. But then just to arbitrarily say, as the growth is continuing south and west of Pittsburgh now, to tell everyone in the western part of the county, oh yeah, now that we've benefited from it and done it, you guys can't. And I understand that we need to preserve agriculture, and I know we need to preserve farming or whatever, but you can't, I don't think we should pass ordinances that prevent that farmer from selling, or the farmer's family, if they want to sell. You know, these are large tracts of timberland as well, and if they want to sell it for a residential subdivision, I don't understand why one half of the county gets to do it and the other half is prevented from doing it.
Because we're special. Actually, Reeves Farm is taking an interesting approach to their development.
It's mixed use.
Yeah, because they're kind of, and I think they worked it out with the family as to what their plans were.
Oh yeah.
When they sold that for development.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, and they're keeping some of what was there. Like, you know, we all drove by and saw that pond and everything, and that's going to continue to be an amenity.
Yeah, it's like Farrington. I mean, you still have the silo up there, and you got the cows out there. And when they had the tour of Chatham bus go around, it was interesting because there's some people who don't have an overall view of what's going on in the entire Chatham County, which you do, because you and I have lived there a long time.
Right.
And it's interesting because we had 3 guys from Pittsburgh, and one of the 3 guys from Pittsburgh lunches we had is we went to the gas station to get Indian food.
Yeah.
And that was one of the stops on the tour of Chatham.
Was it really?
Yeah. What's his name? Came on the bus and talked about how he came from across. He was a cook for the armed forces and came over here, and he's opened up his Indian food here, and he's got a place in Chapel Hill and all over the place. Got several different places. So I think that's still a neat story for here, where you've got opportunities if you're willing to work hard.
Right.
Open space, I guess that also builds on rural character, because that is filling up. And what's your feel on Siler City? I know Wolfspeed's taken a hit, but for a time there, that seemed to be a real hub of activity.
Yeah. I would like to know what's happening at Wolfspeed. You know, there's been talk of a data center. Now, that's not a county issue, because that would be under Siler City's jurisdiction. We need employment in Siler City. You know, it's very interesting, the whole Toyota battery plant in Liberty or whatever. Liberty hasn't gotten a whole lot of benefit from it. Siler City hasn't gotten a whole. The majority of the people that work at that Toyota battery plant actually live in Greensboro, which I think is wild.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I know the folks that did manage to come in with Wolfspeed, that's the same. A lot of them, when they flew into Greensboro, and a lot of them opted to stay in the Greensboro area versus coming to Siler City. And I think we've discussed that previously.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. We need. I hope to hear something happens at Wolfspeed pretty soon, because Siler City's also partnered up with Tri River, and so they'll have they won't have water and sewer issues. They've had more of an issue, people buying and selling property and wanting to do things there and not having capacity than Pittsburgh's had.
Right. Yeah, and I think the stuff we did an article in the Chatham Journal about Tri River Water, and the fact that they're up for some rate hikes that the town of Sanford needs to approve, and there's folks that are concerned about the rate hikes, because there are going to be rate hikes simply because you got to replace old equipment. And
they're talking about power rate hikes as well, right?
Yeah. So I think Duke Energy is planning a rate hike, and there's a group that's got concerns about that, because I heard it may be as high as a 15% rate.
And then we could talk about the gas line. Now, do you want to talk about the gas line?
I don't know. Do we want to talk about? Yeah, we'll talk about the gas line. We're recording this on the 10th of June. There's going to be a meeting tonight at the Chatham Ag Center tonight from 6 to 8:30, and then there's another meeting tomorrow from.
That's made my phone ring more than data centers.
Has it really? Why is that?
Because a lot of people are impacted. Eminent domain, it's going through their property. They want to know how, what they can do about it, what kind of influence they're going to have in the direction, or, of course, nobody wants it through their property, but We all remember from ninth grade civics what eminent domain is, and so.
No, what is eminent domain? Come on.
It's the government's right to take your property if it's for the better of the entire community.
And they're supposed to offer you fair value, aren't they?
Yeah, fair market value.
Fair market value.
Yeah, which is, it's usually, it's above tax value, but, yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you have a 10-acre piece and the gas line goes right through the middle of it, your entire 10-acre piece might, so, you probably need someone to advocate for you in that regard. There are attorneys that specialize in eminent domain, and the way they used to do it was they would take a percentage of the difference. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, like we had a power line go through and they're offering you $100,000 for your land, putting power lines through it. You hire an eminent domain attorney, and they got paid on the difference. So if they got you $200,000, they would take 35% of the $100,000. So there's a windfall for you. There's a windfall for the attorney. The attorney's doing well, but the attorney wasn't getting paid unless. Now it seems like, because these cases are so difficult, the majority of the eminent domain attorneys want some kind of retainer fee up front.
Okay.
Which makes sense. I mean, it is high risk, and the majority of people that hire an attorney do get more for their property, just having that representation.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people fail to realize there's a whole bunch of pipelines that run through a whole bunch of places throughout the United States.
Yeah.
So this pipeline is specifically for what? Because I haven't
natural
got
gas.
Natural gas.
Uh-huh.
All right.
We don't know what the reason is. We were just talking about data centers. Can you put two and two together? There's no evidence though.
So where's it running from and to? Do we know that yet, or is that?
Yeah, I guess it's like.
That may be a good question to ask tonight.
Yeah, it looks like it's right around where VinFast is.
Oh, right around.
And then up through like comes across 87, 15, 501, diagonally through Pittsburgh. It hugs. Now this will be interesting. It gets close to the Rocky River for a while. We're talking about open spaces, and one of the amenities that this county has is that Tim Sweeney, Chatham 130, has bought an incredible amount of property up and down the Rocky River and all the feeder and tributaries to the Rocky River. So that's a great asset to the county that we have all this open land up and down the Rocky River now because of Tim Sweeney. But I wondered whether or not they're going through his property with the gas lines, or whether or not they'll avoid it.
Wouldn't there be restrictions if you're going near a river? I don't remember everything from my planning board days, but isn't there a certain buffer you'd have to maintain?
Yeah, it doesn't mean it wouldn't go through his acreage, though.
That's true.
Yep.
All right, we're going to take one last break,
Sure.
and we'll be right back.